Guys, I'm not going to keep this particular story long. I've been following this case going all the way back to the beginning because the Russiagate stuff was such a big deal and it was so dramatic in regards to our politics. For 3 years, we had a situation where the Democratic Party, not wanting to accept responsibility for their loss and looking for a way to explain why they failed so miserably, not to mention the media basically loved this Tom Clancy-esque idea that the president was working with a foreign government in order to steal the election, and that the foreign government, meaning Russia, Vladimir Putin, was controlling Donald Trump. Each and everything that Donald Trump did was put through that lens, especially if it was trying to be conciliatory and bring down issues of tension and war, something that he claimed and that I actually do believe that he probably wanted to do before when he got into office. Well, Donald Trump said once before that he had been spied on. Now, the people who let Clinton off in that investigation ends up investigating Trump, which I always thought was very weird because Clinton shouldn't have been let off. She was guilty of sin. And if you're letting Clinton off and she's guilty of sin, it gives me qualms and questions about A, why, B, how, and C, if you can't be trusted to do that with Clinton, is it possible you will try to find something on Trump, especially if you thought that she was the one that was going to stop Trump and you taking it upon yourself and within the context of the capabilities of her office, trying to ding the guy yourself. I always had qualms with this. And I always pointed out that I thought this was bogus until they could actually show something, which they never did. And you had one indignity after the next where this thing was being crushed in court. Even Roger Stone gets prosecuted. And Roger Stone was supposed to be the linchpin to make the connection between the two. Stone gets prosecuted for not being the linchpin. One issue after the next, this thing utterly fell apart. Bill Barr was supposed to be looking into, through Durham, the origins of this, how this gets started and everything else. And we found out that basically Bill Barr strung everybody along without necessarily coming up with the actual goods and explaining how all of this started. This case has gotten weirder. We were told that there was a drunken conversation between Papadopoulos that basically kicked off of all this. What is it, Downer and Misfit and all of this other stuff. Papadopoulos said he believes he was set up. And beyond that point, Mueller and these guys were basically looking up conspiracy theories to try to pin something. I mean, that's at least what the guy who was working with Mueller basically made the point about. I, on this channel, was strident that this entirely didn't make sense. And that ultimately, if you're going to make this work, you need to prove a there there. And oftentimes, there was no there there. Even from the standpoint of the hacking, you find out later on that Sean Henry of CrowdStrike admitted that we weren't able to prove that any data was exculpated. And we certainly didn't know if it was from the Russians. And now there's another shoe to drop. So again, the Papadopoulos, everything else, supposedly that's how all this stuff started. Not so much. Not so much. This is Sean Davis from The Federalist. Newly declassified text messages between Peter Strzok and Lisa Page. These two were lovers, paramours. Lisa Strzok showed that the FBI was investigating Trump before Crossfire Hurricane was ever opened. On July 18th, 2016, Strzok told Lisa Page there were multiple open investigations about Trump and Russia. Crossfire Hurricane was not open until July 31st. That means that Donald Trump was being investigated, and Crossfire Hurricane was thrown up as being that investigation. And come to find out, Crossfire Hurricane hadn't happened yet. Apparently, they were looking into Trump for multiple things in regards to this Trump and Russia stuff. The Crossfire Hurricane thing was basically the last thing apparently to come along. That is fascinating because that is not how they told us that all of this stuff started. We were not told that they were alternate investigations. And for the longest time, at least for the last several years, the thought, the belief, the talking points was that this started with this kind of drunken conversation that escalated. This requires explanation. And I got to be honest, I don't entirely know what this means, meaning the implications, the consequences of it. I would love to get Aramate on to talk about it. I'll ask him again. I don't think he's going to do it. Working for Radio Sputnik has consequences. And some of those consequences are there are people who are either on YouTube or who have their own careers that they don't necessarily want to engage like that. They don't want to be castigated, or they don't want to be pinned into a corner in regards to that. Oftentimes they just look for ways to smear. And so they would be concerned about that. Not to mention they may just not like coming on the show. Either of those things could be true. What I will try to do, though, is either get somebody from Fault Lines or get somebody to come on the show to talk about it and to discuss. But if this is right, which I don't have any reason to believe that it's not, newly declassified text messages from Peter Strzok show FBI was investigating Trump before Crossfire Hurricane was ever open. On July 2018, Peter Strzok told Lisa Page there were multiple open investigations about Trump in Russia. Crossfire Hurricane was not open until July 31st. If he's telling her on July 28th that there are multiple investigations, more than one, and Crossfire Hurricane wasn't open until July 31st, that means that the other investigations had to be something other than Crossfire Hurricane, and apparently more than one. I can't believe that it is like 4 years later. Trump has lost the election, and we are still learning information about this. Astonishing. Kami John, thanks for having Steve Grumbine on this morning. Steve is great, man. I love Steve. He's been on my show for years. I think it's like 4 years now. Always enjoyed his personality. My mom loves him. Very knowledgeable. He knows his stuff. On MMT and even on the economic stuff. The man is a beast. No, he's great. Steve is welcome on my show anytime. All right, so I'm going to end this here. I'm going to say like, I'm going to say share, and I am going to say subscribe. If this is the case, can we really trust the election results? Oh, God. Like, share, and subscribe. Michael, it's not that I think the results are perfect. The issue is basically Trump needs to prove it. Trump has billions of dollars. Trump has any lawyer pretty much that he can buy. Trump has the power of the presidency itself and the investigative functions of the FBI and various attorney generals, with many of them being amenable to Trump. He has also the billionaires that he can pull to get, put the investigators and everything else. With all of the resources at his disposal, he still hasn't been able to show it. It's not my responsibility or job to do that. It's Trump's. And if you go out and say that the ghost of Hugo Chavez and Brian Kemp in Georgia and China with the blessings of Cuba are somehow working on the Dominion machines in order to get Joe Biden in office, I think you are insane. And that's basically what these guys have been arguing. So until they make that point clear, and look, I am all for if they can make the case that somebody has stolen the election. You got me. I'm all in if that's the case. Every bit as much as I was feeling that way for Sanders. I just want to know who wins. These guys allow our electoral system to stay opaque. They allow it to stay broken. I suspect, so on some level, they can gain it. Trump hasn't been able to show it. He hasn't. Like, share, and subscribe. Thanks all. You say you wish Joe Biden was a commie. I know a lot of people wish Joe Biden was a commie. All right, guys. Thanks all. I might see you guys later today. By the way, make sure you subscribe. Google has been doing really weird stuff recently. So just make sure you hit the subscription box and make sure you hit the little bell. I'll see you guys in a bit later.